Hello, I am Steve Goldstein, Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs at UC Irvine. I am honored to represent the family of remarkable healthcare professionals, staff, and students who make up UCI Health, the only academic health system in Orange County. Their expertise and commitment to delivering the most advanced and compassionate care in Orange County continues to provide the best health outcomes and serves as a model for healthcare nationwide. To further safeguard health and improve wellness in the region, we are now constructing 5 new buildings. The $1.2 billion 9-acre medical complex on Jamboree in Irvine will include a 144-bed hospital, an ambulatory surgery center, and home to the only NCI-designated comprehensive cancer center in Orange County. In addition, the Center for Advanced Care is an outpatient building for children's health, medical and surgical specialty services, and a 24-hour emergency and urgent care site. A separate investment of $185 million will allow us to construct buildings for the School of Nursing, the Susan and Henry Samueli College of Health Sciences, and the Susan Samueli Integrative Health Institute. Just like the individuals awarded the Orange County Business Journal's Excellence in Entrepreneurship recognition this year, our UCI Health team is dedicated, innovative, and cutting edge. And that leads me to our award winner, Michael Binderbauer, CEO of TAE Technologies, a private fusion energy company. Dr. Binderbauer is a triple UCI graduate, having earned multiple degrees from our institution, including a PhD in plasma physics. He is deserving of this honor for his dedication to developing sustainable, clean energy-based solutions to the complex problems of our era. With more than 900 issued patents and nearing $1 billion in private capital, TAE's revolutionary approach to fusion has led to adjacent innovations in power management and medical therapies as they develop solutions to planetary stewardship. Even though Dr. Binderbauer is traveling internationally, he was so pleased to receive this honor that he has agreed to conduct this interview via Zoom technology. It is my pleasure to congratulate and introduce Dr. Michael Binderbauer. Michael, it is a pleasure to have you join us. Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Well, Steve, thank you. I mean, it's an enormous honor. It's clear that many others are probably much more deserving, but for TAE and the program we've grown and our heritage UCI, this is a great honor. On behalf of that, I'm very grateful for the selection and humbled to be here.
Well, let me ask you some questions that I'm sure many people are thinking when they hear about the amazing things you've done. One of the first questions that comes to my mind is that you started TAE in the late 90s, when many of the technologies were mostly theoretical. And so one question I have is, what's changed over time? What have you learned? And maybe what's the timeline for going forward? Those are 3 different types of questions. Maybe you can teach us a little about that.
Yeah, I think they're very good questions, first of all, and they're hard to answer concisely, but let me say this, I probably have learned mostly what I don't know yet in the early part of the journey. I came out of graduate school, right? I worked with an incredibly brilliant faculty member at UCI, Professor Norman Rostocker. And Norman and I developed a lot of the underpinnings while I was a student there, working on my PhD. And then as we migrated to this rather, I think, presumptuous idea to run a private fusion enterprise to do what usually the governments try to do in the private space, right. We obviously underestimated things. And it's a classic entrepreneurial story, right? I mean, I always tell this, you walk out of base camp in the fog, you're in the under the inversion layer. You get to the ceiling where we're above the clouds, and suddenly you see the summit is way up there, and it sobers you up. But the wonderful thing is that as we were doing that, we developed so much momentum towards the solution, and delivered milestones and things that not only were we convinced we're on the right path, but nobody that supported us actually walked away. It's a beautiful story of people banding for greater good and a grand purpose behind it. And I think that's what's carried this company and carried my career to keep going. And so back to what you asked, what have you learned? I think I've learned that, for one, that great ideas require usually sweat and equity and tears, and you have to. Right. Not everything is given to you. They require, even more so, a good ounce of luck. I mean, there's no doubt, and it depends. If you're more religious, maybe you wouldn't call it luck, but I think luck's a fair way to call it. Mm-hmm. And then it requires really, really good people that believe in the idea and the vision. And finding those, again, there's some luck. And once you do, then you can amalgamate that critical mass that leads to success. And I think TAE is a great example of all those components.
So early on, especially early on, how did you convince investors to move forward with you in such an ambitious project?
I think I would call it naivete by everybody. I said things then, including me, Norm, and everybody was around the program would sort of say, well, in 5 years we can build a reactor, right? And we really believed that. I mean, we thought we had the physics figured out, the superior way of doing this. And so, that's as a physicist, that's where your world starts and ends. And the rest is, as we used to always joke, is just engineering. But the reality is the technology development became the real bear in the project and determined the timeline in the end. And we underestimated that. And equally, the investors that looked at this, they maybe got taken by, I don't know, was our charm or our convincing way of saying what we were believing in deeply. They believed it. And everybody learned together that it was a bit harder and took a little longer and perhaps quite a bit longer. But that was what I said earlier. We didn't lose anybody on that journey. And that's really significant. And then today, of course, we understand deeply what's necessary. We spend 20 years perfecting technologies that are circumferential, but that you absolutely need, and so on. So in addition to solving the world's energy problems, you have the Moonshot affiliate that aims to confront cancer. Can you talk a little bit about TAE Life Sciences? Yeah, that was an idea that came through a vector of friendships and associations in the medical field. And it was really a paper that was talking about the potential, and it was given by people in neurosurgery to me that were talking about the, sort of worst part of their life, which is getting a GBM patient come in and all they can say, look, hopefully you have sufficient time to put your life in order. And that replicating over and over. And there isn't a lot they felt in many of these cases they could do. And so, they said, I have no idea what you're doing, Michael, but there's a paper here on an idea on a targeted radiation oncology treatment that required a compact neutron source. And the thought was, maybe there's something you can develop, a tool that fits the hospital scale that we could maybe utilize to make a difference with this, right? And then this technique had, at least I think at that point, about 2,000 people that were treated successfully, or at least anecdotally treated with some success. Mm-hmm. Albeit not in the clinical trial regulated setting with double blind and all this stuff. It was much more sort of bootstrapped, but it showed the promise inherent. And I took this and I said, geez, I know exactly what's necessary. You can take a fuel injector. So he's like the fuel injects in the car. We use these massively large things to inject high power beams, megawatts of power into this fusion environment. And so I thought, okay, if I take that and I detune that by about a factor of 1,000, I could actually make something compact and perfectly tuned for what's necessary for this idea. And so that's what led to a journey, frankly, of 2 years of insight, with the board and the inner circle of investors saying, can we afford to defocus ourselves to enable that? Or is this too dilutive to our fusion goals? And the company's always been very conservative. So we took this very seriously. And it took us about 2 years to say, yep, this is too good. Maybe not so much for making money, but to really give something to humanity, right? A new sort of arrow in the quiver against some of these really tough diseases. And so we thought, okay, we'll try this. And out of that was born what you mentioned, TAE Life Sciences as a company. We spun out in 2017. We endowed it with, some of our DNA and technology and a license to that. And then we raised capital for it and spun it out properly, self-standing and self-governed today. And it's been a great journey.
That's a beautiful story. That's so exciting.
It's very cool. You wouldn't think transplanting fusion technology to something in the medical field, right?
Yeah. No, well, that gets very close to my heart, of course. Talk to me about leadership advice you might have for other people. You've managed to bring together your passion, your creativity, and then to move forward year after year in projects. What do you think it takes to lead that successfully?
Well, I think it first of all, it takes doing something you really love, right? I mean, I consider myself the most fortunate person on the planet, right? I'm so privileged. I get to do what I deeply love, scientifically interested in. I think what it does for humanity is great. So there's all this positivity around that. But I think the most important thing, the thing that I always feel the most proud and the biggest challenge is getting people to work together. When you think about it, right, no matter how sophisticated the technology, the science is, or the medicine you're practicing, in the end, it's people. And it's usually more than one person. I mean, we're beyond the days where Galilei dropped something off the Leaning Tower and figured out gravity, or, Newton staring at the apple tree, if that's the true story. But the reality today is, right, it's much more complex than that. And the things we build, like the fusion devices, the medical devices we talked about, what you guys do at UCI and in the medical field, it takes teams of people.
Right.
And so the hardest part sometimes is, it's not just finding the right people and not always the smartest people, but the people who can work together and each contribute in their own way towards a common grander good that needs to get developed, that requires all the unique skill sets and so on. And what I've learned is that that's the highest risk factor in every project: technology development, business development, success in general. And I think that's where I had to learn a lot. You come out of a PhD program being relatively self-sufficient. I mean, I did a theoretical PhD. Out of the norm, and I interfaced with very few people. I sat in front of my computer and with my notepad and I did my calculations. Maybe if I had done an experimental PhD, I would have been more humbled and used to the fact that I had to embed into a team in the laboratory. And yet suddenly I got thrown into this. And, I started out with 20 people, which we mostly inherited out of UCI. Today it's 250 people. There's 100 PhD physicists, close to the same complement engineers, brilliant people, each in their own right, a genius. But now you have to make them work together. It's just a conductor that has to get an orchestra of really incredible musicians to create really harmonized music, right? You got to do the same thing. And I hope if I can leave that with anybody, I think that's a lesson well learned. It's a hard one to come by and to practice.
Well, that's
a challenge, but it's important.
That's incredible. So I think we have time for one more question. So I'm gonna ask you this. This is sort of the Babe Ruth question where he points where he's gonna hit the home run.
Yeah.
What do you think? When are you gonna hit the home run? When are you gonna be able to make that step you're looking for in fusion?
Yeah, the next machine will be that. The next machine, we have it aptly named Copernicus. I think it's as much as Copernicus really revolutionized the paradigm of how we fit as humans in the Earth, in the universe, right? It's similar, transformative, I believe. And we think we're blueprinting this machine right now. I'm on the tail end of raising capital for it. We just recently announced some incremental success towards that capital raise. So I'm very confident we're going to have that together very soon. We're going to start construction. I think it'll be about a 2 to 3 year project to deliver that. It's about 2 years of construction, about a year and a half of operations. And at that point, we should be at the point where we have 100 plus million degree fusion plasma operating for a sustained period with the ability to showcase that now it can produce net energy. And while that's not a power plant, there are no electrons yet to the grid. That's what I call the crack the nut moment. That's the inflection point that everybody in fusion has been, excited by and chasing for 50 plus years. And I think we're on the cusp of doing that. And this next project will do that. So that's
again, just so I'm clear, that's you get out the same amount of energy you put in, or you get out more energy? What? Yeah,
obviously same would be fantastic, be break even, right? But I think the goal is to do better. You get, whether that's a tiny amount more, but it's in excess of what you put in. That's the goal. Right. It's a high bar, but I think we can deliver it and we're up to it. We got the team and the talent.
Well, again, congratulations. I think the path and the story is amazing, and using it for the planet, but also then taking what you've learned with your teams to help health is just shows the remarkable span of the influence and impact. So you've deserved this honor, and it's an honor to bestow it upon you. Thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thanks to everybody at the Business Journal for providing that opportunity. And we're love to be part of the Orange County ecosystem, and thank you very, very much.